So thank you, everyone, for coming out this morning. Before we begin, one of our family, the members of the Kansas Highway Patrol, was killed tragically Wednesday in an accident near Wichita. Ricardo Torres, who's been with the Kansas Highway Patrol since 2015, was on his way to respond to a request for motorist assistance on Wednesday when he was struck by another vehicle and then later died in hospital in Wichita. I'd like to say I want to extend my deepest condolences to the family and friends of Ricardo, but we want to especially celebrate him as he is part of the Kansas family and of all of our Kansas State employees overall. And we are just very thankful and grateful to Ricardo Torres for his service. And we hope that his family receives the peace and blessings that the Lord can provide them at a very difficult time. I want to thank all of you now for a very special day as we sign a new... Do I need to move the microphone? I can do that. Thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming out today for a very special day as we prepare to sign a new bill into law. I appreciate Russ Jennings being here along with other members of the legislature and Colonel Bruce of the Kansas Highway Patrol. I also want to especially thank the family and friends of Caitlin Vogel. Her parents and family and friends are here with us today, and Caitlin is the person for whom this law is named after. As we were visiting earlier today, Caitlin is an extraordinary young woman. Not only did she start out babysitting Blair's sister, but all through grade school and high school and on, she was working with people with developmental disabilities, and she always had a special knack for it. And this is a young lady who was very interested in autism and taking care of kids and people with autism, and had that very special gift of patience and love that is really, truly extraordinary. This is a hugely extraordinary young lady, and we lost her when she was just 24. Driving under the influence of alcohol kills people every day in this state and in this country. We're here today because of the work of family and friends of a very remarkable young lady. She lost her life to someone who should never have been allowed to be driving at the time. 24-year-old Caitlin Vogel left her home for a quick bite to eat 2 years ago in May, and she never made it back home. That night, a man with 2 previous DUI convictions who'd had too much to drink got behind the wheel and went for a drive. And he chose a friend's car because it didn't have the interlock system that would have prevented him from being on the road that night. It's a decision that ultimately took Caitlin's life. This should never have happened. Our deepest condolences go out to the family and to her friends of this really remarkable young lady. She has such a great future for Kansas, and now I know she's looking down on us now, and although it was tragically cut short. We're honoring her memory as we sign a law in her name to make our motorways safer. Caitlin's law will increase the penalty for any repeat DUI offender who makes the very selfish choice to get behind the wheel and ends up injuring or taking the life of another. It is our hope that by strengthening this law, that we can send a message to those who have a history of driving under the influence, that the penalty for doing so will be much more severe, and it is not worth it, especially with somebody like Caitlin. The loss of Caitlin's life has really inspired a number of people. It inspired her former soccer coach and her friend, Blair Gordon. Caitlin loved soccer. And she even had 3 knee surgeries from it, but she was passionate and she loved soccer. And Blair began to think about, how do we research the laws on this? What do we do? How do we make this better so this doesn't happen again? And Blair Gordon, she reached out, and she reached out to Representative Russ Jennings and some other members of the Kansas legislature. She had a drive to get this done, and she did it very, very quickly, particularly by today's standards. So I want to thank them for what they've done in succeeding in getting this bill through the legislature and to my desk on a day which today would have been Caitlin Vogel's 26th birthday, today on March 9th. Caitlin's parents, Patty and Kevin, are here today. Blair is here with us today. I'd like to recognize all of them. I'd like to invite Representative Russ Jennings to the podium to speak for a second.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Colyer, honored guests, colleagues. House Bill 2439 is a legislative response to a tragic occurrence in Johnson County that led to the death of 24-year-old Caitlin Vogel. This tragedy highlighted a gap in the law that failed to acknowledge the severity of the offense of involuntary manslaughter when such a catastrophic event occurs at the hands of a repeat DUI offender. This bill assures those who choose to ignore the limitations placed upon their privilege to drive as a result of a DUI, they drive under the influence yet again, are involved in a crash that seriously injures or kills another human being, that they should understand they will feel the full weight of the law for their senseless act. Kevin and Patty Vogel suffered a loss that every parent fears and never speaks of, the loss of a child. We would not be here today if it were not for the efforts of a family friend, Blair Gordon. Blair's efforts brought to light this gap in the law and have resulted in this legislation. We thank Blair for her efforts and extend to Kevin and Patty our heartfelt condolences. Today, the anniversary of the birth of Caitlin Vogel, we honor her memory and send a strong message to those who might injure or kill another human being when driving under the influence. Don't do it. The price that you will pay will be high. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Representative. I would also like to ask the chairman of the Judiciary Committee from the Senate to speak as well.
Thank you, Governor. On behalf of the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Senate as a body as a whole, it was an honor to carry this bill, and it was unanimous, and heartfelt condolences to the family, and thank you, Representative Jennings, for what you did to orchestrate this effort. And Governor, thank you.
And I'd also like to ask Colonel Bruce from the Kansas Highway Patrol to speak for share a few moments as well.
Good morning. The results of House Bill 2439 are a win-win-win. It's a win for law enforcement and first responders who unfortunately have the task of responding to these catastrophic accidents that are preventable. And I can tell you those accidents, when it comes to the time to make notification to families that are the parents and brothers and sisters of those killed or injured in those types of accidents, the toughest part of this job is knocking on that door and looking face to face at someone and saying, I regret to inform you. It's a win from a prosecutorial standpoint. It's been mentioned that there are now tools in the toolbox from a prosecutor standpoint where the full extent of the law could be now brought against individuals that choose to be repeat offenders and drink and drive again and again and again. And it's a win for the families. The penalties associated with this new law will hopefully provide some degree of solace to those people who were victimized. and bring some degree of peace in knowing that an appropriate penalty was assessed against those that chose to create the act that they did. I want to thank the law enforcement community as a whole for vigorously supporting this piece of legislation. I want to thank the legislature for passing it, and I want to thank Governor Colyer for signing it. Thank you, Governor.
The family asked me to mention, that they are so appreciative of everyone who's been a part of this, and it's a very emotional day for all of us, and especially for them. But can we just ask you to just applaud this amazing family one more time? So now we're going to proceed on to the bill signing. We have some members of the legislature too that. Sometimes there are some amazing coincidences. When bills are assigned, they're assigned a random number that comes up in order by the computer overall. This bill that we're looking at today is House Bill 2439. And Mom said it just hit her on the side of the head one day, in that 24 is Caitlin's age. 39 is her birthday. That's what we're celebrating today. Very special. So, with this, we're going to be signing